city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Ezra Parter, Jackie K, and hopefully Brennan Vogt. Not sure if we'll get Evan today. Sorry, trying to get this camera sorted over here. But thank you folks so very much for joining us on the Mile High Hockey Lab. We are on our 96th installment of all time, which doesn't include our bonus episodes with, the trade deadline and the trades that have come and gone, but 96 episodes, which means we're 4 away from our 100th. And so we are going to do our best to ring in that 100 episodes the right way with these final 5 before the 100th episode. So Ezra and Jackie, thank you for joining me. We have a lot to talk about today. Plenty of things going on in the hockey world, plenty of things going on in the Avalanche world. We'll start the show with a quick recap and a reaction to the games last week and some of the other topics and things that have come up in the last week. We will do a preview of games to come this week and check in on one of our pollster articles, as well as round out the show with some power rankings and bold predictions. So once again, thank you to the two of you and to the folks who've tuned in thus far. Let's drop the puck. Ezra, I'm going to start with you because actually, no, I lied. I'm going to start with Jackie. Ladies first. Jackie, the Avs nearly extended their winning streak to 7 games, but did maintain their point streak, and that is at 7 games. 13 of 14 out of those 7s is pretty good. A very much successful homestand, but there are a lot of games left in a condensed schedule for the Avalanche. If you had to put a percentage chance on it, how much of a chance would you give the Avalanche in catching the Dallas Stars and securing home ice as Avalanche sit with 81 points and Dallas currently has 86?
If I had a handicap, maybe 25%.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll talk about it the upcoming game. I think it's their last head-to-head meeting that would, bump it up either way. I know that the Avs had good momentum now, but they kind of do this sort of the back and forth. I know that the tone was a lot different after they dropped the first 2 after the 4 Nations, and I even said they're going to win consecutively on this homestand, and they did more than that. But I think there's ebbs and flows that we need to account for, and I think Dallas is a good team as well. They have 2 games in hand. So they've been ahead all season. So I kind of think they're going to maintain that lead. But the Avs could do it. So that's why I give them a chance. But I'd say about 25%.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was coughing earlier and I didn't want to blow everyone's ears out. So I did that. But yeah, so what I was saying was I think that's a pretty lenient percentage based on how things have gone thus far. sure, it's easy to look at this winning streak and go, of course the Avs can do it, but it's a body of work, right? And the Avs body of work tells us that there's going to be a drop off at some point with this. We usually get like the honeymoon phase when we add guys, and then the dust sort of settles on that. So I think you're right in saying that 75% less likely, but the 25% chance is pretty good if you ask me. And I think it does help that the Avalanche do seem like a team who's more suited to winning later in the year just based on health alone. But Ezra, I will say, despite that, the Avs did look a little bit lethargic in that second of a back-to-back against Minnesota in Minnesota. Do you feel like that was just a case of it being a back-to-back and on the road? And once you're done telling me that, tell me how annoyed you were with that overtime period.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main thing. I think that they've just had a long homestand, so getting adjusted to being on the road while working in some new guys, there's some challenges to that. I can't fault them too hard for, playing a pretty good game that just they couldn't beat the goalie for an entire night. I love that as a road game as far as the defensive structure goes. Obviously, they need more goals, but they really gave up one true chance and it was dreadful and it went in, but I felt like it was a pretty strong defensive game. So I'm pleased with how they played. I'm disappointed with the results. And yeah, a tired Avalanche team doing nothing in overtime. And then Mackenzie Blackwood looking like he didn't know what was happening in a shootout was pretty disappointing for sure. But I don't care about the shootout. It's not going to come into play in the playoffs. And
right.
I would think, playoff overtime, they're not going to look that slow. They're going to be up for it. I did want to touch on the last question real quick, if you don't mind.
Totally. Absolutely.
I think, there's 25% is generous and probably right, because there's significant ground to make up, and Dallas does have a game in hand on Colorado. But Colorado has one of the easiest schedules remaining of all teams in the league. They're ranked 11th in remaining strength of schedule, and Dallas is up at 20th. So, just in terms of like playoff teams they have to play, Colorado's got Dallas, Vegas, Toronto, the Kings twice, and Ottawa. The rest of their schedule is all against bottom feeders or some like middling playoff hopefuls. Dallas has games two against the Jets, obviously Colorado one, Tampa, Edmonton, and 2 Minnesotas. Minnesota is an injured team, so they're on the bubble of being relevant. But it is true that Colorado has fewer games against good opponents left. So if they play up to all their opponents and they don't play down to anyone, they have a good shot, I think. But 25 does still feel pretty fair.
Yeah, and this whole question revolves around home ice, right? Which I know that there's a debate as to whether or not that applies in hockey. I think that there isn't a debate as it applies to any team that plays any sport in Colorado. And any other place with altitude. It's not specific to Colorado. It's just something that we have here. And so I do think that there's something to that, especially when it comes to like a series that should otherwise be extremely close. You're looking for any and all avenues of, finding a way to get your competitive advantage. We are now joined by Mr. Brennan Vogt. Brennan, thank you very much for joining the program. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab, and you are a part of it. Folks, while I have your attention, head on over to the website, milehighhockey.com, and please give us a follow on X at @MHH_lab and at Mile High Hockey. So, Brendan, you missed the topic of conversation, but we'll get you kind of up to speed. Basically, the question is, how much of a chance do you give the Avalanche of catching the Dallas Stars and securing home ice inside the division with the remaining games? 16 for Colorado, 18 for Dallas. Colorado at 81 points, Dallas at 86 points.
They have 2 games in hand. Oof.
Correct, yes. Uh-oh, Brandon, are you frozen? Or are you just thinking?
And there's one
life?
game left against Dallas, and that's it?
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking about life, always. My signal's been wonky for internet, first off. But I thought I heard Jackie, because when I'm picking up my little guy, I have the YouTube on. So I thought I heard Jackie say, one game left and Dallas 2 games in hand. So they're going to burn one of those games in hand when they're playing on Sunday. Oh,
correct.
I said 25%. That was my
Yes.
And I agreed with it.
And I said it was
yeah, I'd say in the range of 20 or 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm being optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. Title of the show today, Jackie's Optimism.
Yeah.
That's a clickbait. If we ever heard of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Brendan, elaborate. Why do you go as low as 10%? I guess is my question.
Well, so they've got some games still left on the road, and that the road, they don't play as good on the road as they do at home.
Gotcha.
That was obvious last night, but given that it was just a back-to-back, we'll give them that. And they're still, I think, yes, they're playing well, but they're still trying to find their chemistry, given that they've got a healthy team again, and with all these the new draft picks. I'm not draft picks. The new
No, I think that was a good way to put it.
not new draft picks, but the new welcome team. So
Yeah.
Nelson, Coyle, and
Right.
Lindgren. Lindgren's done well, I think. Coyle's just for his what he's been asked of him, I think he's been playing really well. And gosh, Nelson's just outstanding.
He's your kind of hockey player. I every time I watch him, I'm like, Brandon is in love right now. Like Brandon loves it. Yeah. So I think you're onto something there. I think that's a fair assessment of the situation. But we also started to talk a little bit about the 3-on-3 overtime format and kind of what we saw last night with really it was both teams slow playing the overtime period and waiting for the shootout. And then of course we learned that Mackenzie Blackwood shootouts are not his strength per se. But let's take it easy a little bit. That is Matt Zuccarello, who's a shootout phenom. So there's some roses to be handed out in the opposite direction as well. Not to mention, Natchez completely just lets the puck roll off his stick on his attempt. So the Avs didn't really come to play in the shootout. But I rest my case there. Jackie, what I'm curious about from your perspective is some people have, hinted at possibly changing the 3-on-3 format or adding a rule during the 3-on-3 period to stop teams from kind of goating it, so to speak. One of those rules that people have talked about is penalizing a team for retreating out of the zone when they have clear possession. Two-parter, do you think that's a good idea? And if not, do you think there's any solution to the 3v3 OT possession debacle?
Real quick, I'll give you my thoughts on the game last night.
Okay.
I don't think it was just fatigue, even though I fully recognize back-to-back with travel doesn't do any favors.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you could. So if the argument is they were fatigued by the end of the game and overtime, I could see that more. I thought they had good jump in the first period. They had a lot of possession, a lot of zone time.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended that period with 5 shots on goal. And I think
like 4 on post, but yes.
Yeah, sure. But I think if we're going to take anything away from that game, and I think they had played Minnesota not too long ago. I know that there was the Martin Luther King Day game, but they played them after that. But anyway, I think what you're looking at in that game, like they have enjoyed the defense of Pittsburgh and San Jose and Chicago. And not taking away from sweeping an entire homestand, which that is an accomplishment that, they can take with them. But here they are playing a team that knows how to thwart their offense and keeping them to the perimeter, blocking shots. Like that game was slow in the beginning, probably for the good first 2 periods. So I think that's sort of the cautionary tale of the game last night, which we have seen happen because just because you get a couple like solid, but I wouldn't call great offensive players at the deadline doesn't mean like the explosive 2022 offense is back. Like this team can be shut down, especially by teams that know them well. So I just think that that's a little bit of a caution to take from last night. But to get into your overtime question, I do like the the idea of that you can only retreat to the red line.
Yes.
Staying in the zone is probably a bit much, but
Yeah, probably.
But going back to the red line, I certainly think that it's kind of a happy medium. It might help a little bit. I know that there's been talk of extending the overtime time past 5 minutes, and that's going to be a negotiation because you're basically asking the players to work more.
Yeah.
So they're going to want something in exchange for that. So,
Totally.
I mean, would more just longer time be better than seeing a shootout? Maybe, but I don't know if that's necessarily the solution. So I agree with you with the idea that maybe try the red line and see if that kind of speeds things up, I guess you could say. Because I don't really think it would hurt. So, I mean,
yeah,
that's fine. I don't mind overtime. It is a different look of the game that you can see, especially if you have skilled and talented players. But sure, teams have now coached themselves into an overtime like last night.
Right. It's like mitigate the risk. Let's see who can win in a best of 3 in a shootout.
And I will say that choosing Niches, I love that Brennan posts the game notes for us because one of my guilty pleasures is looking at shootout stats. So every time they go to a shootout, I have to look it up. So I didn't look up Minnesota's, but Niches has only scored twice in his career in the shootout.
Oh, wow.
So maybe not the best pick there. I'll say fun fact, the 2 best Avs. Does anyone want to make a quick guess? Based on percentage.
I will guess based
Landy.
on percentage is Mikko and who's slick? Like this season, you're saying?
We can't pick who's on the team now.
Who's
Miko's
on the
not in the game notes.
Okay, so I didn't know.
But I don't think
I didn't know where
because
we've only had one since.
No,
Mikko's,
not just this year. Like their career, but they have to be on the team right now.
Kale.
So right now, it's got to be Nate and Kivi Ranta. Has he taken 2?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's Drouin.
That's a good one.
And like Coyle, maybe.
I'm just trying to think who takes them. You know what I mean? Like, Taves hasn't taken many. Maybe in like an extended thing.
I will say Manson has
Nichushkin?
taken 1. I'd love to know what circumstance that was.
Nichushkin?
Yes,
maybe?
You're right with Nichushkin. He is 3 for 4 in his career.
Wow.
Okay.
And
So we haven't named the other one yet. Okay,
yeah.
So Nichushkin. Is it Lehkonen?
No. I don't think he's scored 1. I think if I recall correctly, he's taken like 2 and he hasn't even scored 1.
Sammy G?
No.
I was gonna say, have they allowed him
It's a forward. Let's just say it's a forward. It's not something crazy like someone's 1 of 1. Like it's a forward that no.
Oh my God, I'm running out of forwards here. Who did I mean, Natchez, you already said it wasn't.
No.
You said it wasn't Drouin. It wasn't Nate.
It's not the new dudes. No.
It's Nichushkin, but not Lehkonen, and none of the new dudes.
Yeah.
So that leaves pretty much the bottom 6. I already said Kivi Ranta, so it was not him. Logan,
Drury?
It's not
Miles
Drury.
Wood.
No. Wow, you guys have pretty much circled all the way around.
Colton?
Colton, yes.
Ross. Oh, that makes actually a lot of sense. And
I think he's 5 for 9. Wow.
How about this? Matt Zuccarello, though. He has had 15 shootout attempts. 15. And he's made half of them, basically. So
I just find it interesting. Like, Mikko was good. But when you take that many, you're in like the 30s. Like Nate's in the 30%.
You lose. Yeah, you start to
I think he had gone like 3 or 4 years without even scoring 1. Nate, which is crazy, but I think it happened.
Well, you take away what Nate does, sort of. I mean, Nate could just come flying in as fast as humanly possible on a shootout, too. But it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so usually the snipers aren't the best at it because, that's just not really what they do.
Well, Nate has the one that counts against Lundqvist in the World Cup.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Ezra, or excuse me, Brennan.
So sorry, it's an
aside,
you
chimed in.
but there is something that I do sort of enjoy about the shootout.
So you're like, keep the shootout, but just penalize a team if they retreat
I
beyond
mean,
the red line.
If they get rid of it, I'm not gonna cry. Like it is a skills competition. It's not player
That's what
versus player, really.
Ryan said in the chorus, he called it the skills comp.
Yeah, I think I've heard that one before for sure.
Yeah.
So I understand if you take it out because it's not really hockey per se, but I do sort of have a little bit of a guilty pleasure on the shootout stat kind of stuff. But I love a long shootout when it goes like 12 deep.
Those are fun, yeah.
And you have to roll
that
out
don't
like
typically take
Gerard.
them.
And...
Yeah.
Not when I'm in the arena reporting on the game. That's the point where I'm just like, can I just go home, please?
Was it earlier this season when they did have one of those instances where they just kept going and going? And
I don't think the Avs did.
There was
I think
one.
the Eagles had one, and I think it went like 7 or 8, maybe 10, and I was like,
how far would we have had to get Curtis McDermott out there for a shootout?
Probably like 15.
Yeah.
I gotta see Chris Wagner shootout move.
Well, Wags, I think, does Eagles. And,
oh really?
But it's at that point, it's like I've already got my story written.
And then
all I need to do is just add, add the like shootout details, go down, get a quote, and then come back up and then cut the video. And then it's just like, I just want to go home, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, once a year, though. Once a year. I love it. I just want a long shootout like once a year. I really do. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, it's just like the trade deadline for me. It's just like the trade deadline for me, Jackie. Not for you, but once a year, if we have this crazy madness where everyone gets overvalued, I'm fine with it as long as I get to be a part of it.
But then, like the sun comes up, and like the reality still exists the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mind the shootout because the team is not going to overtime very often. You know what I mean? Like if we had a team that was going to overtime all the time, I'd be tired of it. But
yeah, like I said, once a year, I love to see a long shootout. I get if it's all the time, you're like, this is just stupid. But once a year, I think it's fun to see the guys that never get to go and see can they be the hero, and it's just, I don't know, it should just happen like once a year.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm cool with it. Well, something that's not going to happen once a year, it's going to happen numerous times every year going into the future when the Colorado Avalanche and Dallas Stars meet in Denver. There will be a reception of sorts when number 96, who is now wearing victory green, steps onto the ice. Now, I have a question, and this was in our pollster that I wrote and released this afternoon, so folks head on over to the website if you want to see all of that. But, Ezra, I'm going to start with you here. How do you feel like Mikko Rantanen will be received Sunday? We'll get a tribute video, but then also, guys who used to play for the Avs love to score on the Avs. Where do you sit with this? Are you going to boo him if you're in the place?
No, I don't think anybody's going to boo. I think there's the only reason to be mad at Mikko is that he seems to have forced his way onto a rival. But like, how can you be upset with Mikko for his tenure? I think if you're mad at anybody for Mikko getting traded away, it's his agent or maybe Chris McFarland. Like, there shouldn't be any bad blood between Avs fans and Mikko Rantanen, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I put out the poll, and then on the Mile High Hockey Twitter, I retweeted it and said, he's just going to think you guys are saying moose because, the moose and the booze sound a lot alike. Now, it could be that he takes the complete opposite way and goes full Michael Jordan and says, nope, they're all booing me, and wants that inspiration to just go off. But, Jackie, we got a picture of Mikko Rantanen in our chorus chat in Victory Green, and you green-hearted it, so I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. But I'm curious, what sort of like reception would he have in your mind if you're in the building? Would you start telling people to shut up if they're booing him, if they're sitting next to you and doing so?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
I have yelled at people when they yell inappropriate things at players, but if someone wants to boo at least just like once, it would be pretty annoying all the time. Like when Seattle kept booing Makar, it's just like, get a life. But let's just say this. I was in the building when Georgiev got his tribute video, and there was not booing.
Yeah.
So there was a decent cheer. Like at first when the video was going, it was pretty quiet, and I was like, "Oh, is this gonna kind of be just
Awkward.
a little bit awkward?"
Yeah.
But when it was done, he got a fairly decent cheer. Like he got enough that it was appropriate. It made sense. It was a response. He saluted the crowd. So I think if the crowd was classy towards Georgiev, I think they should be classy towards Mikko. I'm not going to say there would be no boos, but I would be very surprised if it was audible.
I think that's fair.
If it didn't get drowned out by the cheers, because I agree with Ezra. I could go on and on. We could have an entire podcast about just the Mikko narratives and the insanity.
We're gonna in the off season because we're gonna need things to talk about, and we're gonna do specials.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll save some of it now. But I like what Ezra said. He is so much a legend for this franchise that you should cheer him. Like it just it's insane because you think that you think you've heard the truth about what happened with him, and nobody knows the truth. I'm not saying I know the truth. I have my perspective, but just because you have a certain perspective about it, you're gonna boo a guy after everything that he's done for the franchise. So I would be very disappointed, but I don't think so. I think he'll get cheers, and that's what you'll hear.
Well, I'll tease a little bit of my off-season content. I want to call it Chronicles, where we basically do a factual timeline, and then we start to react to it with that as the foundation of the topic, so that we don't stray from fact. Because I do think in this situation with the Mikko Rantanen, you're totally right. There's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of posturing, and there isn't a lot of truth yet. But as the dust settles on this season, I think we'll get more of that. We've seen people tell their side, but I think there'll be a more definitive idea of what really happened in that situation in the offseason, and we'll be able to go through it that way analytically and not emotionally, because the season will have come and gone as well. So I'm looking forward to that. There'll be other topics that we discuss. Landeskog's return potentially. Well, that will be one of the chronicles in the offseason. We might do some throwback chronicles, talk about the Patrick Waugh trade. That'll be fun. Things like that. So that's something you can look forward to in the off season, but we'll get there.
I do have
lots between.
One topic that I would like to do for that is when Makar got drafted, because I got lots of receipts for that one.
Nice. Let's do it then. Absolutely. Cool. That will be very fun. Well, folks, please don't forget to head on over to Apple or Spotify or your preferred podcast platform. We have every single one of these episodes in their pre-recorded version available there. Be sure to turn on your alerts on YouTube so you know every single time we are live, and you'll never miss a single episode. So that will be wonderful. But Brennan, I want to forward this question on to you now. Are you going to be booing Mikko? I think you're going to say no. You've been on the side of neither party is really to blame. They all had to do what they had to do, and good on Mikko for getting paid. You still land there, or does the sports hate start to creep into your veins?
The C-Mac needs to be booed. For that one. If you're gonna boo anyone, boo C-Mac. But I mean, yes, he got us Nages, but don't boo Rantanen when he's the one flat out saying that it's like, I was caught off guard, blah blah blah. I didn't want to go to Carolina. This is one of the 4 teams that I didn't want to go to, and all that fun junk. Supposedly that's what he went to the organization like the first day and actually said that too.
Yeah.
Which I
heard it was there are 4 teams I want to play for, and you're not one of them.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I was
heard
paraphrasing, but
Dallas
of course,
today, so
it
was that there were 4 teams that he told. This was after he decided that he wouldn't take their offer. So this was like a week before the deadline. He told them that there were 4 teams that he would extend with, and he allegedly said that it was maybe not necessarily his idea for a sign and trade, but that he knew that was going to do what was best for Carolina was a sign and trade. So he said there were 4 teams that he would sign an extension with. And those 4 allegedly were Dallas, Toronto, Edmonton, and
I would have hated
Florida.
Edmonton
I think
more.
Florida. I think those were the 4. And so what?
There's only one team I would have not been mad about, and it's Florida.
Or well,
they just won.
I don't care if he goes Toronto. I'm not mad at.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So,
I
but
just
yeah,
don't
so
like
the,
Toronto,
the
but that's
hype
just
and,
me.
and
Agreed.
stuff. So this is what the story is. So that's kind of why Carolina narrowed it to what they were given at the time, and then they hit jackpot. You know, it made sense with Dallas. They said Edmonton was interested, but they didn't have the assets. Toronto didn't want to give them Matthew Nyes, so
Marner.
Good one.
yeah.
Well,
Marner said no
because
because he has a no move clause.
He's gonna say
Yeah.
Marner said,
So, yeah,
"I'm good."
like,
Marner's going to free agency, man.
You guys want to hear a funny
approached
stat?
him. They approached Marner, and like he flat out said, "No, I don't want to."
You guys want to hear a funny stat?
Bro?
Yeah.
Toronto. This is why I don't like Toronto. I actually just don't like their fan base. I don't think it's their team, and so I never root for that team to win because of my disdain for their fan base. But this is why. You know, the narrative around Mitch Marner in Toronto is that he's not a playoff performer. Guess who leads the Toronto Maple Leafs in points in the playoffs among their big four over the last 5 seasons? His name is Mitch Marner. And
yeah,
so
that is pretty funny.
That pretty much puts it on a silver platter as to why I don't really mess with Toronto. So if he would have gone there, I would have been really mad because I think he would have helped them a lot. But
well, it's the hype too. It can be just too much. But just to really quick, I just want to finish this Mikko. What I heard today was, and it wasn't that it was those 4 teams or nothing. It was just those were the 4 that he gave them. He knew that he would extend with. So they said that like Vegas, even though he wasn't one of the 4, if it, for example, been like them, it would have been, they would have just had to go to him and say, how about Vegas, for example. So it wasn't a be all end all 4 teams. It was, these are the first 4.
Right.
Have at it.
Well, Jackie, leave the Mikko stuff, and that's actually crazy when you think about it. It's cool because that offers the perspective of Mikko still trying to do right by Carolina, basically maximizing the return because he knows if he signs and trades, they can have that sort of on the table when they ask for the return. And so that's an awesome thing to note. But the Mikko Rantanen situation aside, just based on where this season is points-wise and the projected matchup against Dallas in the first round, Jackie, is this the most critical game of the Avalanche's regular season so far?
I read this earlier and I thought about it. It's like yes and no. I do think of the regular season games that are left, is it the most important game as far as facing, implications? So I'd say yes, but I don't. At the end of the day, I don't think it's that important. I don't think it's monumental if they get home ice. It would be a feather in their cap to say, hey, we chase them down and we pass them. I think it's more about like the mentality of we did it than it's like so important to have that home ice, because I don't really think it's that important. But they're not going to get it in one game. So they're going to play that game and then they're going to have like a month left after it. So even though it would say a lot about like this is where we stand going into a very likely playoff matchup, a lot can change after that. So
yeah,
that's why I think yes and no. So that's my answer, yes and no.
Fair. Well, Brennan, to Jackie's point, I mean, it feels like we're looking right past the game on Friday against Calgary Flames and already just fully affixed on that game on Sunday against Dallas and Denver. But are you hopeful, or I guess, how do you think leadership personalities that have been added to the locker room will keep them grounded in a game like Dallas, which is set to be potentially very emotional? And then the second part to that question is, do you anticipate any fights on Sunday?
Well, first off, I don't care if I play 5 minutes. I don't care if I play 10 minutes. I will go out there and shovel snow if I have to.
Okay, Eric Johnson.
Yeah. That's the kind of leadership they're getting right now.
Exactly.
And so, that just says something about Eric Johnson and the type of leadership he brings back to the locker room. And when you got Nathan McKinnon being a sourpuss in the corner because he didn't get his, perfect pass or something,
No, I know what you mean.
3
He's
points instead of 2. I mean,
yeah. That's not a slide of McKinnon. That's just an understanding of his.
It's just an understanding. It's just McKinnon's what is it?
Well, last night he had a up ice pass to Drew in, and had Drew in collected, it was a missile pass, and had Drew in collected it, he would have been on a clean break. And to your credit, as soon as because he basically chipped it in and changed after. So, and as he's going off the bench, I was like, oh, I bet you when he gets back, Mikko's going to just tell him, or Nate's just going to tell him, what the hell was that, bro? And it's just like, dude, that's the hardest pass to receive in the center of the ice. It's an angle and it's hard. Like, it was just, but I imagine in my mind, he's like Kobe Bryant over there, and it's just like, that's unacceptable. How dare you?
Well, and you're leaving yourself open for potential hit if you put your head down too long and blah blah blah. But it's if you and then you're bringing in Brock Nelson and so it's he's got leadership qualities, so I think it's going to help the team tremendously when it comes to that kind of stuff. But we, like you said, we need to look at the game on Saturday, or no, this Friday. And gosh, I don't even know who's going to start. Is it going to be Vladar or is it going to be Wolf?
Yeah,
because Wolf's been on a tear lately.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, we like to humble people in Calgary, so maybe we can get that taken care of. But back to my question about
my fantasy team does not hope so.
Oh, well, back to the question about fisticuffs. Do you anticipate a Josh Manson Jamie Benn rematch?
If the situation calls for it.
Yeah.
I don't see Manson hesitating on it.
Yeah. Even though he's coming back from injury, it's not hand related still, right?
As far as I know, it was like upper body.
And I think the latest, like why he was out around the Four Nations, was lower body, I think.
Yeah. Because he was out earlier for a wrist. Gonna held him out of a fight back then, in fact.
Yeah, it's like I don't think he would.
Jackie, I know you're not one for the staged fight, and I'm not necessarily pitching that right now. I'm pitching emotions, high emotions situation, calling for it, like Brennan is pointing toward.
I just don't know that, like, 5-6 weeks away from the playoffs, you're that emotional. We'll see. I think it would have to be if something happens in the game, and that's the true spontaneous emotion. If there's a bad hit or something, which, we don't want to see that either way. But I think Manson's got to be smart. Yeah. I really do. Like, he's not going to, at the end of the day, will he back down? No. But if there's any point in time that he needs to think about it,
it's now.
It probably don't do it. It's just like, there's still one player away from Middleton playing in the playoffs. So Manson maybe let's not do this. I could see if I had to put money on anybody, it'd be Miles Wood, because if he's even playing, because that guy seems to be on some sort of crusade to I don't know, get suspended or something. Like, if someone's
to be seen for any reason at all.
Yeah, exactly. He's back in that stage where he has to prove he belongs on the roster.
Exactly.
It's not a good stage.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So if anyone's gonna take a little bit of a spark and turn it into something, if we have.
Well, you mentioned it starts with a questionable hit, some sort of play, and that's true. And I think that there's more potential for that to happen maybe inside of a regular season game like this, because as we remember, us Avs fans hold the Red Wings rivalry near and dear, and that all started with a hit on Adam Foote, and then of course the response, where a Red Wing was hit into the boards. Sorry, Drapers. But that's what started the rivalry. But not a lot of people remember that they kind of kept it close to the guard in the playoffs because they had too much to lose. There was no brawl in the playoffs, and they played in the playoffs after. It wasn't until the next season, in basically the first regular season game after all of that happened, is when the brawl happened. So my whole thing is if there's going to be a moment where there's going to be a real rivalry moment, I do think it's inside this regular season rather than in the playoffs. Because if the Avs play in round one of the playoffs, it's business first, and not a lot of fights happen in the playoffs, period, because of those ramifications that you speak of. If you get into a fight, you get suspended, and then we have nobody on the back end, then we're in trouble. So I do think that there's less of a risk in this situation. So I think guys will be more willing. It just remains to be seen if the situation will present itself or not.
I think the other thing is you've brought in all these guys from the East. They don't care about Dallas.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is
the
other thing that I get into. We're in the name tag era. I just think, like, even if you get somebody that was a huge part of the Islanders, he's not walking in the door and trying to quote unquote lead a bunch of people he doesn't know.
Right.
You know, they'll respect him for what he's done in the league, of course, but I think you have to be very careful that you're not. You know, there's a lot of people that are still trying to learn each other's names. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, they're hockey players, and they're not going to like something if it's like bad on the ice. But as far as like this deep-seated emotion, that just truly just takes time, and I don't. I don't think
really
they're
good
going to have it.
That's a really good point, because it brings me to my next segment, which is our power rankings, and I'm going to put those up on the screen so that we can all kind of look at these together and assess them as a team. But the thing that I wanted to touch on in particular was the fact that all of us have the Avs ranked pretty low. Jackie, you have them out of your top 5 altogether. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The NHL crew had them at 7 this morning. But to your point, one of the reasons why they had them so low was the interchanging parts within the season and how hard it is to find a cohesion when so many things come and go, players come and go inside of a season. And I think that that's an astute observation, and the same is true as it comes to rivalries. Like, these guys haven't even been here very long to have that sort of passion and will for their teammates when it comes down to it. I think they will in moments, but not that deep-seated hate that you need, which is from two teams that stay pretty much intact and against each other in big moments. So I do think you're right about that. But let's talk about these Stanley Cup Power rankings. I'm going to list them out loud so the folks that are just going to listen can know what we're talking about here. So, Evan, we have, let's see, hold on, let's get that off the screen here. I'm not sure why that's up there. So, Evan, we have from 1 to 5, starting with 1. He has the Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars, the Washington Capitals, the Vegas Golden Knights, and at 5, the Colorado Avalanche. Let's see here. Brennan, you have the Capitals at 1, the Jets at 2, the Panthers at 3, the Stars at 4, and the Avs at 5. I have the Panthers at 1, the Jets at 2, the Stars at 3, the Capitals at 4, and the Avs at 5. Ezra, you have Dallas at 1, Florida at 2, Avs at 3, Tampa at 4, and Vegas at 5. And then, of course, Jackie, you have Winnipeg at 1, Florida at 2, Vegas at 3, Dallas at 4, and Carolina at 5. So I'm going to start with you, Jackie and Ezra. You're the only two people who put teams in this top 5 that otherwise were not a part of the list by the other 3 people. So, Jackie, I'll start with you. The Hurricanes have won games inside of all of this madness, and you have them at 5 in your power rankings. Can you explain how they've landed that far up?
So you just want me to talk about that in particular, not necessarily some of the other teams, just just this right now.
You can touch on that first, and then touch on your other takeaways from it.
Okay. I thought about it, right? I will say I noticed none of us picked Edmonton, which I think we all know I don't like Edmonton.
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting because one of the things for me is it's like consistency. I don't believe in the one-year wonder. Like, it's an amazing story. This is why Washington is not on my list. I really like Washington. I like their roster. I just don't think they're going to win the cup. It's you know, you got to go through some defeats. You have to do it together. You're not going to do it as a one-year wonder. So the flip side of this for Carolina is they've been at it a few years, and people say, well, they never got past the second round. Well, we know of team very well that was the argument against. You never got past the second round. So I don't necessarily mean like you're never going to win because of that. I think they've had a good team for a while. They have good structure. They have scoring. Their goaltender's been okay. Do I think they're one of the best teams in the league? They're better. Like Washington is better. But do they have a better chance of winning the Cup? I do think so. And I think maybe this whole controversy is sort of, I think teams need something to like galvanize around. So I think this Mikko controversy, even though it hurts them that now they don't have Mikko or an HS, that hurts for sure. But I think you kind of it takes something that'll bring you together. And I think they are ready to win. So if that makes any sense. I look at teams that I think have taken their lumps, have learned from it, and I think they're ready to win. I also think it's interesting none of us picked Toronto. Maybe that's sort of in the same vein as Edmonton, but
I think it's in the same vein as to why only one person put Winnipeg at 1.
I think they're the
Winnipeg's
best team.
had by far the best regular season, looked like the best team, maybe other than Dallas. But in terms of results, they're better than Dallas. So I do
see the difference.
but it's the Jets. So it's like,
but the difference for them is they took their lumps.
Yeah,
they had a disappointment last year, and now they're back even better. So to me, that's why I think Winnipeg's ready to win when Washington quite isn't. I think the fan base is very, very, very much underrating Winnipeg. I think because it's Winnipeg, they never win, and I get it. Like playoff Hellebuck, he sucks. I mean, if you have a guy that's a perennial Vezina winner, he's going to be good at some point.
He'll figure it out at some point. Yeah.
Totally. So, and it might also be part of that. He needed to take his lumps. He needed the experience. And I think that whole team's ready to win. And so that's why I think, usually the President's Trophy winner doesn't win. But if I had to say who has the best chance to win the Cup, to me, it's Winnipeg. I just think they're the best team.
So you don't have the Avs in your top 5. Are they in your top 10?
10, I'd have to list them out. Maybe. Okay. I'd have to list it out. I would probably
There's a good chance they'd be in your
I'd
top
put
10.
Edmonton and Toronto for sure ahead of them.
There's
10,
2.
Yeah, you're starting to definitely get into the Calgarys of the world. I'll say yes.
Yeah, because like I said, the NHL crew had them at 7 today. And I like what you have to say about Winnipeg. I had them missing the playoffs this season as my season-long bold prediction. So, I mean, maybe I should do that for the Avs so that they end up being the best team in the West next year. But Ezra, you have what used to be the perennial favorite, the other team in Florida, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I got to give you some credit here because they're sneakily a really good team and under the radar right now, which is dangerous considering they still have really good players. And it seems like they did really good to get out of the Stamkos situation. And I'm looking at this list and thinking, honestly, maybe Avs are 6 and I might put Lightning in at 5 if I redid it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tampa's got a lot going for it. I did my rankings based on who. So to be in my top 5, except for Vegas, a team had to acquire somebody who was going to play top 6 minutes because the last chunk of Cup winners have done that. They had to have a goaltender I think can get hot and win. And they have to have a defense core and centerman group that I think is deep enough and strong enough physically and, just their game overall to go the long haul. And man, Tampa checks all those boxes real well. I'm not a fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm a fan of so many of the players on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think they did a really smart thing bringing back Yanni Gourde and bringing in Olivier Bjorkstrand. That trade, as much as it was expensive, it really put that team back in the contention conversation for me. Dallas, I think it's like a shoe-in as a top 2 team. I'm surprised everybody else has them lower, frankly, except for only me and Evan putting them in the top 2. It's Dallas and Florida, man. They're just the class of the league right now, and I don't know how anyone is supposed to beat them, but I do believe in the Avs doing it. It's just going to be a tough first round matchup for sure. I want to talk about Winnipeg because, okay, yes, the big knock on Winnipeg is that from last year is that Hellebuck didn't hold up in the playoffs, and he never holds up in the playoffs. That's Hellebuck is a great goaltender, and he will be great. My knock on Winnipeg is they're doing all this with an insane shooting percentage. Like the shooting percentage for Winnipeg, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's significantly higher than anyone else in the league. And they don't have like specific snipers where you're like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. They have a team-wide shooting percentage that's unsustainable. And you do that all regular season, you're not going to get that in the playoffs. I just think they're a team relying on excellent goaltending and elevated shooting percentages, and those teams don't win. The teams that win are the ones that can grind it out, that can play any kind of way. And Winnipeg's won a lot of different ways all season. I don't want to say that they can't do that, but I just think the way that they've gotten to first overall in the league is not sustainable. As good as they are, I don't think they're great.
Well, to your point, looking at some individual numbers here, Mark Scheifele shooting at 24.8% right now. Gabriel Velarde, 22.1. Adam Lowry, 17.5. This is over the season.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Connor, 15.4. Like they have 1, 2, 3 guys, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys shooting north of 11%, which isn't crazy, but it's a lot of guys. Yeah.
Here's the thing with the Avs. Everyone but McKinnon. A lot of really high shooting percentage.
Probably true. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
That's going to be a concern if any of that dries up. Lehkonen isn't shooting 20 anymore. Nichushkin, Drouin, and Kiviranta's miracle run.
He's rolling, baby.
If we're talking about shooting percentage, we got a team that we need to be concerned about there.
Yeah. I think the difference for me is I have full faith in the Avalanche defensive game, and I don't have that in Winnipeg. And I don't mean just the blue line. I mean the defensive structure throughout the lineup. Like Colorado can defend.
I would take Winnipeg's team defense any day over the Avs easily.
Another person that didn't have Winnipeg in their top 5 was Mr. Evan Liu, who has joined the program. He's joining the program now via car. So thank you, Evan, for making it happen for us. But tell us, why didn't you have Winnipeg in your top 5? You and Ezra were the only two.
Yeah, hello from a parking lot in Florida. I'm living life. It's a great time right now, let me tell you. Why did I not include Winnipeg in my top 5? Well, I'll admit I was very, very close to. I almost left the Avs out of this and put Winnipeg in that 5 slot. But I think I kind of caught Ezra's comments there towards the end was like, Hellebuck kind of let them down, but like they're also doing this at an insanely high shooting pace, right? Like it's just, you don't know how sustainable that is. And the playoffs are kind of a different beast. And we've seen that, at least last year anyway, when it came to them. But they're definitely, I was very close to putting them in my 5 over the Avs, but the homer in me couldn't quite do that just because the Avs have won, I think I've already lost count, 7 straight, I think, right? Or 6? No, they won 6 straight and then the 7-game point streak. Yes, that's what it was. 7-game point streak, and like, you call me crazy, but the Landeskog Media Tour has got me feeling some type of way, and that can maybe push them over the edge at least a little bit, maybe over Winnipeg, at least in maybe one round. Beyond that, I wouldn't be too sure about that. But
if they're parading Landeskog around like this and he just doesn't come back, what a huge mistake.
It's really honestly, I think it's really dangerous. I mean, I know that it's exciting and those things, but it's very public now. Very. And
it went from not public at all to as comprehensive
as public as you can
whole
be.
Episode on that.
Let's just say remember Forsberg. Let's just say it's very dangerous. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that stands out to me right now, Brendan, you have the surprise Washington Capitals and the OV train to the Gretzky goal record as your number 1 team on the Stanley Cup Power rankings. And I honestly got to give it to you because when I look at that team, I do feel like they're built in a way that should be successful. And of course, anytime you have a straight up legend on your team and you're in the playoffs, you have a chance. Tell me why you have them as your most likely team to win the Stanley Cup as we sit right now.
Well, it's a great chase.
Yeah, there you go.
But if he scores in the playoffs, it won't count.
I know. Like he'll get it before then, but it's just I had to say it. Well, I've read, I can't remember where I read it, but this possibly could be Ovi's last year if he gets the record. So they're going to want to not disappoint for him. They've been on a tear. They've got one of the highest, I think the highest points in the East. They've got a very, very, very good goalie combo in Lindgren. Not Lindgren.
No, you're right.
Lindgren and then Thompson. Yeah, it's spaced. It's actually Lindgren. I'm thinking Ryan
Not
Lindgren.
The defender. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then they've just been playing some good hockey. And like I said, I think I said it earlier in the year that they were just a complete surprise to me. That I wasn't expecting them to be this good as they were. And then Winnipeg, Hellebuck. I think that's going to be their downfall. Hellebuck he can handle himself in the regular season through the stretch, but once the pressure falls on him, it's just unfortunate. He buckles like Georgiev.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the Capitals, one of the things that just totally blew my mind today when I looked into their roster and kind of where they're getting points and all of that, Protas. My gosh, he only had 6 goals in his career in a single season leading up to this year, and now he has 28 goals. Protas has more 5v5 goals than Mikko Rantanen this season. Now, you want to talk about good asset management. They signed Protas last year to not a long term, but to a good contract. And all of a sudden, overnight in a season, he becomes probably a 30-goal scorer, probably a 70 to 80 point producer, and the second point leading player on your team right now, just behind Dylan Strome. Oh, and by the way, Ezra, PLD is back.
I love PLD.
I've got PLD on my fantasy team.
Like I said, I like Washington a lot. If they win, that's awesome. I don't believe in the one-year wonders.
That's fair. And it comes down to approach, Jackie, because that's the other thing I was just about to get into. Ezra, you painted a beautiful picture of how you got where you got. So I'll give you guys my way of getting to my rankings was I thought about the path and the difficulty, not to mention which parts of the bracket I thought were the strongest. So I look at the Central's part of the bracket as the strongest part of the bracket. Someone in the Central Division has to be in the conference final, basically, in my mind. And so with that, I have to give the 3 teams that I think are the best in the Central. I thought that they had to be on this list. So that's why the Avs are barely making it over Tampa and are barely making it over, some other team like Carolina or Vegas in my list. Then that left me with Florida. And I thought about, you can't demote the defending champs unless you feel like they've gotten clearly worse. I don't think that they have. I think that the Panthers have gotten better, in fact, since last year. And I think that they have just as good a chance to repeat as any team who has in the past. You got to remember, there's been like 3 or 4 teams who've been repeat champions in this last 15 or so year window. So that's not that far-fetched for a team really to repeat. I wish the Avalanche were a part of that, but they weren't. So that's where Florida got me to 1. And then in that second position, to me, it was who's really the best team on paper and in terms of results right now in the league. And it is, to me, the Jets. So that's what landed me in my power rankings. And folks, if you are listening and you can't see these, head on over to our X, head on over to the website. We're going to do an article to recap this episode where you can see our power rankings. And to the 1,100 live viewers right now, if you have your own version of these power rankings, be sure to put them in our chat so we can get you a shout out. Somebody called me out on Altitude SR this morning, apparently, according to Nicholas. So I'll have to find out what exactly that was. I know.
I
Right?
gotta throw in because you mentioned Protoss. Do we know where he was drafted? Offhand, no one look it up. Does anyone know offhand?
Not off top.
Isn't he like a third rounder?
Yes, I think it was 91st overall.
Yes, he was.
I feel like Dallas. I don't know why, but that's ringing a bell to me.
No, he was Washington.
He was Washington. He was drafted by Washington.
Mind.
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention.
I meant where as in number. Yeah. All the young guys that play on these good teams were all drafted by their team.
Nice. Very nice. Well, folks, there you have it. That's our power rankings. I think we'll update these as we get closer to the playoffs because it'd be nice to revisit everything. Brandon, what's up?
And you know who Protoss's line mate is?
Stroman Ovi.
Nope.
No?
PLD?
PLD.
Yeah, I think he's the I think he centers the second line, I think.
As according to Daily Faceoff, PLD's centering the line on the second line, and Protoss is on the right wing.
Protoss is huge, guys. He's 6'4", 6'6", 247, and he's going to score 30 goals. What?
He's a Keaton Middleton just up and forward.
Keaton
might
Middleton
have a little bit more skill, just a little bit.
I love
size wise, because if you want to think about a comparison, Keaton Middleton's 6'7".
Yeah,
he's more of a Tage Thompson on the wing.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that does it for our power
Avalanche comparison.
Yeah. All right.
Why don't we just compare him to Francois Beauchemin then? If
I'll just leave now.
Well, let's get into our bold predictions so I can get you beautiful folks out of here. And thank you guys for joining me today. We had some bold predictions last week. We had like 3 episodes between then and now. And we got some of these dings and X's in that time frame, but I'm going to hand them out again. Ezra, you said that there would be a Boston trade. Boom. That's a flipping ding. Jackie, you said McKinnon would score multiple goal games twice before the trade deadline was the stipulation that we screwed up, and you were correct. He did that twice before the trade deadline.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, and you also had one that you said that the Avs will make 2 more deals involving NHL contracts. And you were right about that as well, because it was Charlie Coyle and Eric Johnson. I do consider that Eric Johnson one because he played. So I actually have to give you, unfortunately, a season-long X because you had Sam Alinsky going in a trade at the deadline. And
that's fine, but
Sammy's
we
still
got we got the summer. So
yep.
You can take it off the board.
And you did say that the Avs would acquire another goalie, and I consider the signing as doing so. So that is a ding for you as well.
Okay, I mean, that is generous. I thought about that was more in response when Wedgwood went down, and we didn't know how injured he was, and he came back quickly, so it wasn't a big deal. So that's kind of what that prediction was about. And then when he was healthy, it was like, okay, but I'll take it if you want to give it, but
you'll take it.
I personally wouldn't have called that a ding.
Okay, well that's because. That's because you have more integrity than I do, and I just like to hear the sound, the ding sound. So, but speaking of hearing the ding sound, this one is going to kind of hurt because I predicted that they would trade Cal Ritchie, and they did. We all were hopeful that they wouldn't, but that is indeed what ended up going in exchange for Brock Nelson. Evan, you had the Avalanche posting 2 shutouts. You got one. You got one of them, but you didn't get your second. And then Brennan, you had the Eagles sweeping Henderson, and you also got one. You didn't get both, so that didn't happen for you either. So let's run that track and quickly get in this week's version of Bold Predictions.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right, let's start with Ezra. What you got for me this week, my friend?
I'm going to say Nathan McKinnon has twice as many points as Mikko Rantanen in the Dallas game.
Ooh, I love it.
I have one that's similar.
I bet you it's in reverse.
There's a wrinkle or two.
Okay. Well, you're next, Jackie. What is yours?
All right. And I was already thinking of this, so I usually don't try to,
Play off. Yeah.
reverse,
play off someone else's. Yeah.
reverse guess someone. But I was already thinking this, so if we're gonna call it a rivalry game, the Dallas game, I do think, at least for me, my bold prediction is about this. So I think Rantanen and Duchesne will combine for more points than McKinnon and Makar in that game.
We could both be right. It'd be hard, but we could do it.
I threw up in my mouth a little bit. When you said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just hearing you say Mikko Rantanen and Matt Duchesne in the same sentence.
Did you see Mikko's first goal was assisted by Duchesne?
Yeah.
First goal as a star? Yeah.
I saw that and I was just like, what are the chances? Like, of course.
And then we just needed Patrick Waugh to go tell him to shame and sit in the corner.
I couldn't think of if Dallas has any other former Avs off the top of my head.
Off the top of my nog.
No, I'm gonna say no.
I think a piece of Josh Manson's skin is just embedded in Jamie Benn's teeth. So I don't know if you count that. But Evan, what do you got for us this week?
I couldn't think of one until just like 20 seconds ago, and we might as well just make this Dallas game go crazy.
It's the only one that matters.
Exactly. Former stars Kiviranta and Nichushkin will each get 2 goals.
Wow. Oh my goodness!
Okay. Now I have to get.
I don't even think it needs to be that crazy. If they each even got 1 goal.
Okay. How about just each get 2 points?
That's a little easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nuke get 2 points or
I'd
2 goals.
Stick with each get a goal.
Points. Hey, Nuke might get 4. And
I almost said
Rantanen might get 0.
I thought about it, and then I was like, oh wait, Kivy used to play with the Stars.
Yeah. He ended our season.
Yeah,
Brennan.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Brandon. Brandon,
well,
Brandon,
I'm just saying.
This week? Will you boldly predict that you never talk about that series ever again? Because that would be wonderful.
So for me, I say Brock Nelson not only gets his first goal, but 2 goals.
First goal
in that game, or are you on that game too, or just for the week?
How many games we got this week?
2,
we got
probably at least 3, maybe
3 if Wednesday, if we do Thursday show.
I say 2, just overall.
Over the week. Okay. I like it.
Yeah, over the week.
I like it.
Considering
he was real close last night, huh? What a weird thing! Like last night, the goalie Spencer Knight hits the bar right when Brock Nelson hits the crossbar, so it looked like the back of the net moved with the puck. So Nelson's like, "I freaking scored, bro!" But nope, not quite, man. I was waiting for that whistle and horn to go off, but it didn't happen that way. Well, that just leaves me, and come on, guys, you know where this is going. You already said it earlier. Val Nichushkin's getting his second hat trick.
Okay, so I'm happy it is Joel from you then.
Yeah. Well, I'm the hat trick guy. So if you're about to do one, just make sure you clear it with me first. So Val hat trick against the Dallas Stars. And hey, by the way, there's one thing that I forgot to do, which is, hey, Peterman, you were right last week. You made your bold prediction. And actually, we'll see if we give you your ding here, because you had Georgiev giving up 6 goals. Were those all on Georgiev?
Yeah,
I don't think they pulled him.
They didn't pull him.
They didn't pull him.
So you know what, Peterman? That's a ding for a listener. That's a listener ding.
Is that our first listener ding?
Yeah, congratulations, Peterman. You're the first listener ding. And yes, the Avs do have an ace in Nichushkin, and you got a believe. That's a little Broncos reference right there. I dig it. So those are the bold predictions this week. We don't have any. Anthony said, geez, Jackie, you want to kick my dog too? Oh, that's freaking funny.
I can only follow the heart. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes you just got to follow the heart.
Yep,
Fair
I
enough.
dig it. I dig it.
Just,
Well, folks,
just to clarify, what did you write down as my bold prediction? Did you say the 2 goals or the 2 points for each?
I said 2 points for each.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you get 2 goals, we'll give you that too. That'll be crazy, and
A
it'll
double
count
ding?
the same.
I'll take
yeah,
that.
Exactly. So apparently, according to Nicholas Bruca, they were joking around and said something about me and Evan quoting their interviews of Bedsy. Well, someone's got to do it. Altitude. You guys don't. So
Well,
sorry.
you give him credit, right?
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean, you
guys.
do.
I cite. That's the only reason why you know what's happening is because I cite you in every
So,
single time I do it. Yeah, whatever.
What is anybody
not have been
supposed to
mad.
do?
They were probably just poking fun. It was probably lighthearted. But you know what? If it ends up in Bednar's mouth about how funny Mosier is, then I probably will quote that, So make it happen, Captain. Just waiting on you guys. But no, we love them over there at Altitude. If they want to be on the show, come on anytime. We'll make it happen, boys and gals over there. So, folks, that'll probably do it for us over here on the Mile High Hockey Lab. This has been another excellent episode, our 96th edition. We are creeping in on that 100. We have big plans for episode 100. But in the meantime and in between time, please continue to subscribe, like, and share these broadcasts with your fellow Avalanche fans. And please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com, where you can find all of our written material. A lot of it is how I source the script for this show. So you'll get some follow-up stuff in written form if you go to the website now, and that will complete your content creation experience over here with the Mile High Hockey Lab. So, folks, on behalf of myself, Adrian Hernandez, I have been joined today by the wonderful Ezra Parter, the wonderful Jackie K, the all right, I guess, Brennan Vogt, and the all right, I guess, Evan Liu. I'm just kidding. I love both of you guys. All of you are so great. And until next time, go Avalanche.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.